What's up? Happy holidays. I usually have a bunch of Squishmallows behind me, but I got rid of them because the owner is a Zionist pig who supports, the Israeli apartheid state. I actually didn't get rid of them immediately, though. I thought with myself, it's fine if I have them. It's not me. His views don't represent mine, of course not. And then when I went to hold one at night, all I could think of was dead children in Gaza. And then I thought about it with myself, like, materials being an extension of me. Naturally, I looked around for theories and philosophies, which there's a very healthy crop of. There's a lot of research papers and things of like this exact nature. I did self-education, and today I plan to share that education with you. So, in the spirit of the holiday season and, getting stuff, I'm going to talk about the material self or extended self and how this concept plays in today. So, the idea of your stuff being a part of you isn't exactly an easy one to trace, like the history of. When I first thought about this stuff, I immediately thought of, John Locke, life, liberty, property type of stuff, along with like personal identity, which that was like forever ago, 1690, 89, whatever the fuck. Along with Jean-Jacques Rousseau in his work of Discourse on the Origin and Basis of Inequality Among Men, which was 1755, he discussed the idea of the noble savage and how the owning of property corrupts men. While that's not directly talking about the material self, Rousseau's ideas do contribute to the discussions of possessions that links to, human identity. And then I stumbled upon George Mead, a sociologist and philosopher who developed the concept of self as a social phenomenon. Ah, hello, boy. He argued that your true self arises through social interactions and that individuals define themselves on their relations to others. And sound like a broken clock, but once again, that's not explicitly about possessions, but Mead's idea on the social self lays very important groundwork for these discussions. Like in Mind, Self, and Society, a collection of all of his lectures after he passed, came out in 1934. I scratched the surface of it. It's a deep read. I'm thinking about actually getting it and just reading it. It's like 400 something pages. I barely scratched the surface of it, promise. In the work, he explores the nature of self and development of the mind, and the role of society in shaping an individual's identity. The concept of I and me is the central to Mead's theory, where I represents the spontaneous and impulsive aspects of the self. I think of it as like how you talk to yourself daily within your brain and like how you're actually thinking and communicating in terms of like I is the I aspect. And then the me is kind of like your social media profiles or how people might describe you. It's more of like the social profile of you. This may feel a bit removed, but I promise it's an important lead up. Because the idea of the social self is really the basis for your material self. As I think it's fairly given that material's value only really comes from what we give it socially. When used as a social tool, materials are as useful as our hair, like accessories. It might as well be me at this point. I think this is particularly important in the capitalist structure we live under. The societal impression of you in tandem with your objects is crucial. Where I feel I get a little bit lost in the weeds in the history of this theory, like stuff before the modern theory, is with the idea of affordances. It's a term introduced by a perceptual psychologist named James J. Gibson. Hello. As I was saying, affordances are a term introduced by a perceptual psychologist named James J. Gibson in his book, The Ecological Approach to Visual Perception. The basic breakdown of an affordance is all the properties of an object, not just the practical usage, but mentally through the eyes of that perceptive person, like all possible outcomes for this item. Understanding how people perceive objects in their day-to-day life through these affordances is really crucial to providing insights on how these objects might become integrated with a part of someone's extended self. I hope I didn't lose you. That's kind of confusing to me too. But this all leads me to what is considered the modern leading theory on the material self or extended self. And that's Russell Belk's Possessions and the Extended Self in 1988. Kinda recent, see? This guy's like still alive and stuff. Belk suggests that possessions aren't just utilities, they're actually key components to building the expression of one's actual core identity. He cites Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, a name I like and an important figure for his work in The Meaning of Things, Domestic Symbols, and the Self in 1981. Belk cites a study that Csikszentmihalyi did in Chicago where they asked families what their most treasured item was. The top 3 articles they got was furniture, art, and photographs, which supports the aesthetics over function idea. He also mentions a quote from Yifu Tuan, a father of human geography. Tuan says, "Our fragile sense of self needs support, and this we get by having and possessing things because, to a large degree, we are what we have and possess." Belk breaks it down into 4 stages. The first being infant distinguishes self from environment. Second being the infant distinguishes themselves from others. The third crucial stage is possessions help adolescents and adults manage their identities. And then the eventual 4th stage being possessions help the old achieve a sense of continuity and preparation for death. Basically, the final role of possessions to us is creating your lasting memory. Which, if you've ever been to an estate sale, I mean, personally, I like judging the dead people, I guess. I'll judge their taste all day, and if they got good taste, I'll buy their shit, and I'll remember them, bro. I'll be like, dang, this old dude had a fire alarm clock. I know, I'm awful, but it's backed by somebody. For Csikszentmihalyi, it's all about symbolism and psychic energy. Yeah, he literally calls it psychic energy. Meaning the attention and meaning you give something, like personally, with your brain waves, actually soul ties you with that object. He doesn't use soul tie, but I said soul tie. Basically what he means. I think Belk's extended self, material self theory is particularly relevant in the context of consumer culture under capitalism, where individuals often define themselves through their consumption choices. The acquisition and use of possessions goes a long way in communicating one's identity and social status and belonging within the larger social context. Karl Marx talks about possessions communicating social status in Capital. Marx says, "Value, therefore, does not have its description branded on its forehead. It rather transforms every product of labor into a social hieroglyphic, Later on, men tried to decipher the hieroglyphic to get behind the secret of their own social product. For the characteristic of which objects of utility have of being values is as much men's social product as is their language. The belated scientific discovery that the products of labor, insofar as they are values, are merely the material expression of human labor expended to produce them, marks an epoch in the history of mankind's development, but by no means banishes the semblance of objectivity possessed by the social characteristics of labor. That's how Marx talks about the usage of things as a part of your social profile. Of course, he's criticizing this, which obviously, he said that capitalism is supporting this breeding ground that produces a broken and wrong way of gaining happiness called commodity fetishism. In commodity fetishism, consumers worship goods and believe that goods have magical powers that bring happiness, provoking this pervasive and permeating expectation that happiness lies in the next purchase, or brings in a I would be happy if I could just have mentality. Marx suggests that real happiness comes from doing meaningful and properly rewarded work. And not just meaningful, period, meaningful to you. I think we should live to work, not work to live. This is also the major basis for Marx's objection to capitalism. When the capitalist owns the products of a worker's labor, the worker has been alienated from what they've created. The worker has been robbed of a part of themselves. The capitalist, in Marx's view, is seen not only as the exploiter of labor, but incidentally a thief of the worker's very self. Because, like we've been talking about, putting your work, energy, brain power into something and then having that ripped from you, it's basically an extension of yourself at that point. So not being properly rewarded for that work is a complete and utter corruption of the human system. It's as gross as it gets, in my opinion. I think the system we work under is wrong. Speaking of the failure that is capitalism linked to humans' relationships with materials, and the whole lack of squishmallows thing, America is experiencing a mass boycott directed to a multitude of multinational companies. McDonald's is getting massive social pressure for donating food to the IDF terrorists. Speaking of which, the two Zionists are working together. Isn't this insane? Crazy. It's like they had to go into their secret pro-Palestinian genocide room and figure out who can collaborate with each other. Puma was criticized for years for their support of the Israeli football team. Ultimately, they're not renewing their contract that ends like this month. Starbucks sued their union for making pro-Palestinian posts, and now they're down $11 billion with their longest stock drop in history of 12 days, which unfortunately ended. They're naturally dealing with union troubles, per usual. They aren't giving certain benefits to union workers. And on top of that, they're also getting pressured by federal agents to open up their stores they closed. Why did they close them? Because they were unionizing. That's illegal. Aside from that. And then recently, the Congressional House of Foreign Affairs approved a bill that expands the 1976 Anti-Boycott Act. This prohibits U.S. companies and citizens from participating in boycotts that are against what America considers the good guys, basically. Against, as of right now, the Israeli apartheid regime. But even boycotts like organized by international governmental organizations like the United Nations or European Union, as opposed to the origin of the bill, which was the Arab League boycotts. Can I get in trouble for this video? I don't know. I don't care. I don't know nothing about nobody. What I do know is Coca-Cola products are out of my rotation. I fuck with Pepsi anyway. Diet Pepsi's always been like one of my faves. I didn't need any excuse to avoid McDonald's foul-ass food. I mean, this certainly dissuades me from 2 a.m. fry runs. And avoiding Starbucks gives me the perfect excuse to discover local coffee joints. Why am I doing this? Because I believe what I purchase is an extension of me. I refuse to support the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people, and I will not support or associate with anyone or any entity that does. And I'll advocate through every sense of myself for everyone else to do the same. Not only because our material selves represent us, but because, particularly in America, this really matters. The American government could put a halt to the desecration of human life going on in Gaza right now, and they refuse to. So I plan to use my voice and my money where my heart and my head lies, because they are an extension of who we are. If I have to defend this with the American government, the First Amendment, I hope that's enough. That's all I gotta say. If you'd like to read any of the sources I used to create this video, I will leave all the research papers or anything down in the description. I appreciate you so much for watching. If you'd like to keep up to date with anything I'm dropping or anything like that, Instagram is probably the best way. I'll leave that in the description as well, along with the regular stuff I leave. Subscribe if you want to see more. Leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. I don't really care about likes. They don't really matter, so do what you want with that. And I'll see you again sometime, hopefully. Happy holidays. I didn't end up making those other 2 album reviews because I felt like it was kind of a lot of music to post back to back to back. I don't want to be like just a music channel. They didn't inspire me enough to make videos about. But I mean, I got Olivia Rodrigo's new joint on vinyl. I mean, it's really good. So is Teaser Touchdown stuff. Not as good as the other 2 though. But don't worry about it. Bye.